Okay, before we get started today, I want to, I guess you say shout out, I don't know the vernacular, to IFG, Inquisitive Fish Guy. A little bit of background, he came out here about a year ago and did a video that I have yet to see. I just found out about it this morning. I'm going to watch it first chance I get today. And that'll be a video that's it's post-Harvey, pre-storm, 21 storm. So you get to see some contrast. He's done another video that I also haven't seen, but I've heard about, that he says he's going to donate to us for restocking recovery, the ad revenue from that video. And we'll provide links to those in the header for this video. Today,
mention his subscribers. We've had a lot of them.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Come visit and comment.
Carl's reminded me of things I should have known to say, but we want to thank his subscribers that are logging onto or watching our videos on YouTube. And thank them for coming. I think I finally understand that we call them subscribers instead of whatever other terms I was using. Okay, today we're going to do a vat that I know is positive, because yesterday was such a downer when we lost Pseudotropheus demasoni, and Carl thinks we should have inserted in the video a photo of that fish, which I will do today. Today we're going to do Elanocara lawanda red top, which so far as I know hasn't been positively ID'd and given a scientific name, but I haven't done research on it recently. It's an interesting Elanocara. I thought our Elanocaras had taken a big hit, but Susie has started doing, we had 3 55-gallon vats that she started doing, and we have a vat of males, females, and juveniles. And we
had 49 out of 75 on the juvenile.
Okay, on the juvenile vat, we 49 out of 75 survived the storm. That's a young male, just starting to color up nicely. Some more. That's fairly typical of the fish, kind of blue with a yellowish orange dorsal. So Susie's going to be inventorying these in buckets up here while I go break down the 300. And we're going to do the 300-gallon breeding vat. This is the way we typically process fish. Normally we would hope to get 300 to 400 offspring out of a vat, but out of a 300, I suspect we're not going to get anything close to that this time. But we're going to break it down, inventory our breeders, augment the breeding colony, and harvest the youngsters. So now we're going to go down. Carl's going to do that. I'm going to walk down and get started on this. Okay, this is Greenhouse 1, Row D, vat number 6. It's a 300-gallon breeding vat. Normally at this stage I would pull out all the hornwort and throw it away, but we're encouraging plant right now. You can see this hornwort's not that bad. If you do this next vat, it doesn't look quite as healthy, although the new growth is healthy. This greenhouse suffered carbon monoxide. I had to come out several times a night, check the carbon monoxide alarm, turn off the heaters long enough to get the oxygen levels up so they wouldn't produce carbon monoxide, then turn the heaters back on. There's several nights of little sleep, but the plants are starting to recover, and that's good because our ammonia levels, which spiked up to 1 part per million, are now down below 0.25. and headed south. Each day they get better, and part of it is the nice green growth, the new growth on the hornwort. That's representing a lot of nitrogen in the form of ammonia that it's taking out of the system. And this plant also contributes. You can see the leaves are kind of yellowish, which is kind of atypical, but I think that's because of the carbon monoxide impact. But the plants are recovering. I see the new leaves coming out on that one are greener. Okay, so I'm going to set this hornwort aside to put back in. Since we don't want to cut down on plants, I'm going to put that down here. And then I'll describe step by step what we do. Those of you who watched yesterday's video saw part of it. It was pretty sad. Today is going to be better, I promise. Okay, you'll note as I pull up the hornwort, we get quite a bit of floating stuff. That's mulm that forms on the bottom. We don't discourage it. We used to do this really labor-intensive thing when we broke down a vat. We took 10-inch brine shrimp nets like this and scooped out all the gunk on the bottom, but I think that's counterproductive because I think it has a lot of beneficial bacteria. I know it has a lot of paramecium in it, which provide food for the fry. In each one of these vats we have these cichlid hotels. This one was supposed to be hanging but got knocked down. These are strapped together with a hook so we can hook it over the edge to make it easy to remove and also keep it up off the bottom so the fish can get into the mulm on the bottom. So I'm going to take those out. We have 3 sets like the one I just pulled out. Here's the second one. And I'm going to make Carl back up there. Here's a female that did not make it. I'm going to set her aside to pull out. This one needs to be restrapped, but it's functional. And then we put one larger one made out of drain pipe to provide cover for females. The smaller ones provide cover for really small fish, juveniles, and smaller females. This helps out subordinate males or females that are carrying. Okay, so I've got those out. We used to throw the hotels on the bottom, but it became more difficult to get them out, so I like hanging them. Like I say, it also allows fish to get to the bottom. Okay, now I'm going to remove the 2 fry cages. It's all aquaculture rated netting that we buy. Typically I would have 2 of these hotels in that one. I only have 1 for some reason. Pick it up, see if there are any fish in there. Nope. Normally there would be a whole bunch of juveniles in there, so I suspect we lost a lot of juveniles in this vat. Oh, okay. So I was looking at an old label. Apparently we just processed these fish how long ago?
Let me go look and I'll tell you.
Okay, Susie's going to tell them. So that's why we don't have any juveniles to speak of, which I guess is good news since we seem to have fairly high survivorship in the 55-gallon vats. I was wondering why those juveniles weren't that big, because the label on here tells me we did these in June, but we apparently have done them much more recently than that. Okay, pull out. Looks like I only put 1 hotel in each of these. Again, I usually put 2. Oh, here's a juvenile. Oops, he slipped through. He was small enough to go through the mesh. You can see this is a cylinder. February 2nd. Okay, so very recently we did these. Now that juvenile must have been in here. He's too big. He was about an inch long, too big to have just been produced. And we don't completely empty the vat, so it's possible that a lot of some of the smaller fish stay in. Okay, somewhere around here I put a net.
What are you looking for?
My net. I thought I had it staged, but okay. So now I should have gotten clean water. I'm going to get it from another vat. Make sure I didn't get any fish in there. Yeah, a few guppies. That won't hurt anything. Okay, and I'm going to net out as many fish as I can. There's a female. Yeah, a young female. A couple guppies. There's some more females. I swish the net around to get rid of some of the moam. Oh, there's a fair number of females and a young male, breeder male. This, by the way, is more aerobic exercise than one would think. Some more females. We added a bunch of young females to the breeding colony. We had a small breeding colony before, and we have a larger one now. Okay, here's another one of our breeding males.
Alright, let's get a good look at it.
And some more females. I'm going to keep netting until I don't yield anything for a couple sweeps of the net, then we'll set up siphons on this. And this looks pretty good. There's 5 females, one older one. In selecting breeders, I favor older fish, because by doing that you're selecting for longevity. It's possible that some of the older females aren't producing anymore, but I figure they've done their job. They deserve they deserve to keep going. But to the extent they reproduce, they're passing on genes for longevity. Another factor in our system, as you can probably tell, we don't strip eggs from females. Here's 4 more females. The labor's too intensive, and I prefer fish that can naturally reproduce. So there's actually, our system selects for females that don't spit their eggs, and a lot of breeders separate out the females when the fry have hatched and are close to being released. They strip them, or sometimes they even strip the eggs immediately and put them in a tumbler, kind of an artificial fish mouth to raise them. And what you're doing when you do that, you're actually selecting for fish that don't carry naturally, because you're not penalizing those that don't. Fish that we've had a long time, multiple generations, when we net the females out, if they're carrying, they don't spit eggs in the bucket. You can tell when we get new breeding stock in, a lot of times the early females will spit when we do that, but there's strong selection for females who don't spit, who carry their eggs all the way through to fry and release them. I have noticed when they're ready to release the fry, they tend to sidle up alongside any cover, which is usually the fry cages, and they release the fry, and the fry dart into the cage. we could probably yield a lot more fish if we stripped. Of course, the labor would be too much, but this is selecting for not only females who carry, but fry who are good, adept at surviving. You'll note, I don't know if you can see through the glare. Let me run a net around the top. These are feeder guppies we leave in with our cichlids. You'd be surprised at how well they do. In fact, we sell hundreds of them as fish food. They survive fairly well with the cichlids, but the advantages of having them in there is that the breeder fish get used to having small fish around, and I think are less likely to eat their own fry. Okay, one of our plecos made it. I'm going to toss him in that cage right there so I can put him back in later. There's another female and some guppies. The guppies will be returned to this. Susie will sort these out. She won't be doing a lot of sorting because we don't have fry, because we just set this thing up. Another female. See, the second, what is today? The 20-something. Susie, what day of the month is it? No, today.
What's today's date?
No, nobody here knows what the date is.
Hey, tell them what the use of the plecos is.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Oh, here's 3 more females. It looks like we have good survivorship in this one. We use the plecos do several things. One is they do some algae control, and they're a lot better at it than Ancestris, by the way. They also provide snail control. We have red ram's horns and pond snails and trumpet snails, which are the Malaysian trumpet snails, which are a real pain because they're just perfect for clogging up some of our filters. Oops, there's a dead fish I need to take out. Put it there for Carl to step on. And so they provide snail control, algae control, and they stir up the mulm so that some of it overflows out into the system. What is surprising about our system, a couple things. One is our sumps are clean. There's nothing on the bottom, and I think part of it is that we have a whole lot of feral fish that keep things stirred up, and bacteria breaks the mulm down as long as it's stirred up. The other is our well water is 285 parts per million calcium carbonate, meaning if you have a faucet drip, it'll form a stalactite and stalagmite. And we don't change much water. We probably normal operation. Summer, it's probably up around 2% a day from evaporation. But that's not changing water out. That's not taking any calcium carbonate out. When we do siphon out a 300-gallon vat, it does overflow a couple hundred gallons into a wetland that we have south of the greenhouses, and so there is some water change, but very little. So I expected hardness to go sky high, but it doesn't. And the reason I think it is that it precipitates out. If you look at I'd have to pull out a vat, but we get the sheets of calcium carbonate on the vats where water flows down, and so the calcium carbonate's kind of in balance. It doesn't increase because it's precipitating out and forming sheets of calcium carbonate. When I do a talk at a fish club, I usually take a chunk of it along just to show how hard our water is. Okay, I got down just a couple guppies. I'm going to do another sweep through this. Take that bucket up for Susie to handle. Yeah, just guppies. There are probably still a few fish in there, but we'll get them later. So first thing I'm going to do is take care of these guys by taking them up. Susie, where are you? Okay. I don't see where she is, and she's not really set up. Normally she is set up for this. I'm going to pour a bucket of water in to aerate those guys, although the water temperatures are low, so they're usually not a problem. I want to check these. The males look okay, but I'm going to put some water in. I'm going to track down Susie real quickly so she can process those fish. Well, I'll give it a couple minutes, see if she comes back in. I'm going to go ahead and set up the siphons. Oh, Susie, you have a bucket of fish. You probably need to get buckets from the other greenhouse. What'd she say? Oh, okay. So I'm going to set up. Do so that we don't lose any little guys. By the way, at one time we had wooden walkways in here, and we painted them with marine paint, all kinds of stuff to keep them from breaking down, but they broke down. And Ivan Dibble from England came to visit us, I think it was in 2008, when we hosted the American Library Show in San Antonio, and did a tour of our farm, and had 50 people come down, get on a bus, tour the farm in the morning, have barbecue, and then we went to Plecos Creek and collected a whole bunch of meat fish that we packaged and let them take home. Ivan was walking along on wooden walkways over there, and he stepped through, hit a weak spot, stepped through, fell down, threw his very expensive digital camera into a vat and fried it. So we started looking for solutions, and this is a good one. Normally you would expect concrete blocks would increase the hardness, but again, because of the precipitation of the calcium carbonate, it has not happened. So they're indestructible, and the other good thing is they provide cover for our feral fish. Oops, I think I just lost my mic. Plug in there. Sorry, I lost my mic a second. At any rate, they work out well, and if need be, if we ever do something different, they're fungible, they're reusable. And that's one of the things we aim for on everything we do, is that whatever we are using can be used for some other purpose. Okay, I'm going to get these siphons going, and as I pointed out yesterday, we put the T's on the end to prevent fish from getting caught. If you had just one hole, the pressure of the siphoning water could trap it and kill it. And we've had that happen. The T's prevent that. So I'm going to make sure I get the siphon full, put my hand over it, run it down, and it started. Let's see if I can get this. Okay. And you can see the siphons are running from the bottom, so you see that they're pulling some of the loam out. Not much, just kind of right where they're working. But it gets some in, and if you look at the water between the vats, it's clear. That's a function of, whoops, we have another plecos in there. That's function of our plant filters out-competing single-cell algae for food, which is why our ammonia levels are dropping. Okay, this one step I missed. I should have turned off the water. Counterproductive to have the water running over siphoning. And we'll give this a few minutes.
Why don't we take a break while that siphons down?
Okay, we'll take a short break while that siphons down. Ready? Okay, we're going to go down and check the vat. And the first thing I see is we have a nice big pleco. That means 2 of them in there, and you can tell that if you watched yesterday's video, you can see there's a lot less mulm on the bottom. The plecos are doing their job. The other plecos in a cage. I don't see any adult cichlids, so we managed to get them all out. So I'm going to turn the siphons off. He's probably going to go berserk when I move this. I'm going to pick the siphons out. Check the net. Looks like a little mystery snail, and that's it. Turn the water back on. And start resetting this up. 1 cage, 2 cages, and for some reason I only had 1 of these in each one of them. I'm going to replicate that. I'll come back later and add, which means I'll forget about it, and 3 or 4 minutes when we process this vat again, I'll notice it and maybe I'll fix it at that point and put a second one in. Go ahead and hang the hotels. This is some sort of craft wire. It's nice and soft that Susie located for me and works really well at making hangers. That one needs to be restrapped, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Oops, a little too much weight on that one. I'm going to shorten this one up a bit. Get these set back up, and then we will go look at the breeders. We had losses, but not as bad as yesterday where we had 100%. And I'm going to put the hornwork back in because we need our workhorses right now. Okay, now let's go up front and look at breeders. Susie has inventoried the breeders. I think it was, what'd you have, 2 males and 34 females?
Yes.
Okay, and that was out, show the database. This is our database is the Rwanda red tops here. We had 50, looks like 55 females and 3 males, so we suffered some losses. I've got some young females I'm going to add. They're kind of young, so we may end up with some young males in there. I'm going to go ahead and put, so I don't want to stress these any more than necessary. These are guppies and that I'm going to add back in. We're going to go ahead and take these down to the vat and put them.
Females?
Yeah. And release them, and I need to remember to get the other plecostomus out too. Another guppy. Some guppies tend to stick to the side for some reason. So let's pull this up and get this guy out. There he is. One thing I've learned about the large plecostomus is you grab them by the head. If you grab them by the side, they flex their sides and okay. And those are rows of pointed scales that do a pretty good job of ripping you. Okay, so this is set back up except for additional females and reviewing our males. Now, Susie says that one of the young males is better than the 2 breeder males. We lost one of our breeder males. And so this is a chance to discuss something. This is a wild fish, a species, even though it had, we don't have a specific name yet. You have to be careful with selection. If you always go with the nicest looking male, you may be pulling the population away from what it looked like in the wild. And of course, we're not really certain what it looked like in the wild anyway. We kind of count on it maybe looking like the fish that we originally got. But you have to think when, let's say there's 100,000 fish of a species in Lake Malawi, and somebody catches 200 of them to bring into the U.S., you've lost some of the variability of the species already. Then of those 200, a few good breeders get maybe a male and 3 or 4 females. Another small sample, further reduction in variability in the gene pool of the fish. So you're immediately changing it. Then you're changing it fairly dramatically by having it in aquariums and feeding it processed foods. You're selecting for fish who handle processed foods better than their normal diet. You're selecting for fish that aren't frightened, because frightened fish are stressed. They die more frequently. They don't reproduce as well. So you're immediately domesticating the fish. Within generations, it's a domesticated fish. I know on some of our mollies, if you released mollies we've had for 10 or 15 generations in the wild, they would be, they'd swim up to an egret or a heron to nibble on its nose and get eaten. They wouldn't flee from a bass. They would simply be easy food. Okay, we're going to look at the 2 males that survived in the breeding colony. I like both of them. And then we're going to look through these males. Which one did you like, Susie?
Well, it's hard to tell about that one.
Okay, it may just be he's bigger, but I'll go with him.
Give us a good look at him. All right.
Okay, so now I have 3, so you can put the males up, Susie. We're not going to do a female vat. I'm thinking about putting all of these in. If there are any young males in here, they can, we'll get them out next cycle. So I'm just going to count these. Have you counted them already?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't need to count them. I'm just going to transfer these males over to that bucket and take all of these down to the vat, and we are done with that. A lot more abbreviated than if we were doing a full cycle. If we were doing a full cycle, we would have had hopefully 300 or 400 juveniles to deal with, and we would also had in what we call a BRU, breeder unsexed vat, and on Alanacaras, those are fish that are over, about 3 inches plus long, not sexable yet because our fish grow fast and aren't sexable at 3 to 4 inches. And we would have had some of those to split into males and females, but we didn't do that this time because we had just done this maybe 3 weeks ago. Okay, here's another dead fish. We have, I think this was one I already picked out and somebody kicked it in the water, Carl.
Yep.
Okay, so a much nicer vat of breeders than the one we did yesterday where we had 100% losses. We had 34 of 55 females survive, 2 of 3 males in the breeder vat. And Susie, what was it on the juveniles? What was the percentage of survivability? No, the little ones. Little ones.
Little ones got 49 out of 75.
Okay, had 49 little ones out of 75. So we had losses, but nothing like what I was fearing. And I'm hoping that that's true of most of our Alanacaras and peacocks. We'll find out as we go through them. Later today, we're going to do Labiotrophus fuliborni blue marmalade, which is an OB strain that we know we lost a lot of. Susie looked at them yesterday. We have a customer waiting for some, and we're going to do the breeding colony to see whether we can send any to him, or whether he's going to have to wait until after we reconstitute the breeding colony. We probably won't film that one, just because Carl's got other things to do today. Okay, good fish keeping.